Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everybody. I'm Megan. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for having me at your meeting, your around the world meeting. Look at all you from everywhere around this globe. That's so awesome. Oh, gosh. So Stephen, thank you for wearing a bow tie and suspenders. It really elevates the mood for us on Tuesday evening. I am in California. I'm about, 40 minutes outside of San Francisco in a little town called Martinez. It's still sunny here. And I am fired up to be here. I'm super fired up. I love being invited to come to an AA meeting. I don't care where it is or how it's going to happen or what time or how far out. If there's nothing on my calendar and I can do it, I always say yes. And there's always a piece like, I wonder what my life is going to be like then, because it changes, Sobriety gives us these full, fluid lives. And turns out, I didn't know, but I was going to end up needing knee surgery and being down for the count and coming out of a tailspin of a physical thing. So I'm really happy to be here today. I had my first physical therapy appointment, my first post-op visit, my first physical therapy appointment today. And I go in there, such an alcoholic. The physical therapist goes, "What's your goal? What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to run 13 miles. I want to get back to my running. I need to run a half marathon by September." And she goes, "Okay, lay on the table and let's do 10 leg lifts. Hold them each for 5 seconds." And I want it to have a little brat attack. No, I don't want to do any of the work. I just want it done. And I thought, man, that's really how I drank for years. I just wanted my life to get better, but I don't want to do any of the work around it. So grateful to be able to connect those dots today. My sobriety date is February 29th, 2008. I'm a leap year baby, which is appropriate. When I showed up here, I was a daily drinker. So it makes sense to me that if you give me one extra day in the year, I will use that to get sober, because I had to drink 365 days. And I am also, typical AA prodigy. I started drinking very young. Age 11, I had my first drink, grew up around alcoholism, never knew really what alcoholism was, but had it pointed out to me frequently. You're probably going to be an alcoholic. We have alcoholism in our family. Don't drink. Yeah. But that was all the conversation and education that my family and my loved ones had to offer me about the disease of alcoholism, which is fine, because I probably wouldn't have done anything different, even if they had anything better to offer me. From a very young age, I know now I suffered from spiritual malady. I didn't know anything about a spiritual malady till I got sober. I didn't know that I had no tools for living, inability to live life on life's terms, disease of perception, all that stuff. I didn't know. I just thought it was my personality. And I just thought, I had a lot of feelings that were really uncomfortable. Before I started drinking, there was a pivotal year in my childhood. I was 10, I was in 4th grade. My parents were hippie drug dealers. They sold pot to pay their mortgage. I was born in 73. So, my parents were on the young side to be hippies, but teenagers, had a whoops, got married, did their best to make ends meet. And they did it by selling weed. And it was Nancy Reagan was doing her Just Say No to Drugs campaign in the early 80s. And I came home, latchkey kid. I was a latchkey kid, which means I had hours before anybody was going to be home. Came home from school and took the stash, my parents' stash, and flushed it down the toilet. And it took hours to flush these huge pillowcases of weed down the toilet. And my parents came home and I got grounded, you guys. I thought I was doing something good and I got grounded. And, God loved my parents. They really did the best they could. And they did. And we have a great relationship today, but that was confusing to me. And I had to spend the summer lying to my friends about why I was grounded and what was going on. And the next year I was drinking and starting my career around lying and realizing what powers of manipulation I could do to control the outcome, control getting my way, controlling how people think about me. And those little character defects just started to sprout. And you know the progression, the way it goes. I drank a lot in high school. When I was 13, I did try to commit suicide. When I look back, I don't know why. I don't relate to feeling depressed or sad. I was a baby alcoholic with emotions bigger than I could process and no ability to just be with them. And that was my solution. And, you know, once I started drinking heavily, I never tried to commit suicide again. That didn't need to be done. And I had a lot of consequences around it. One of the first times I drank in high school, 14 years old, I go to have my first sleepover party with a friend, and we steal all the alcohol, you know, the magic mixtures that you put in a mayonnaise jar of a little splash of everything from the liquor cabinet. And I was with my friend Bridget, and she got sick. She got alcohol poisoning and like passed out on the sidewalk, and people had to call the police and the paramedics, and Bridget got wished away to the emergency room. And my feelings about that was, all right, no curfew for me. I was staying at Bridget's house. Now no one is looking for me. And I, you know, I kissed a boy that night and slept in a park and like all this crazy insanity that I thought was fun. And my drinking never changed, by the way. It was always cops, hospital, kissing boys and sleeping in parks, basically, just for a quick little rundown. But it did get pretty, I don't know, I feel like I went through stages. The older I got, the scarier my drinking got. When I turned 21 and I had an ID and money and could buy the amount of alcohol that I craved, I started to experience blackouts, which was a new experience for me. That is terrifying. I always feel as a woman to be a blackout drinker is a special brand of shame and guilt. And I know everyone suffers from shame and guilt, especially if you drink the way that I drink. But it was really terrifying to go out and think that I'm, you know, living La Vida Loca and hanging with my homies and having like these great times and these madcap adventures. And in the morning, wake up and have to be faced with like the truth of the consequences of my behavior and see that it's not cute. It's dangerous, and have no ability to connect the dots that that's because my drinking and the drinking is the problem. You know what I discovered is the solution for those feelings? Drink, hair of the dog. So you see where we're going, a little bit of a cycle of insanity. Go out with your friends. It's going to be different this time. We're going to have fun. Drink, blackout, wake up, shame, guilt. I don't like this. Drink, right? And so now I'm experiencing what I learned in AA by reading our literature is an obsession of the mind about alcohol, where like my thinking about alcohol cannot be trusted. Like I don't process the experiences in a sane way. I don't remember consequences, or the consequences were never as bad as they were because I need to drink. And that doesn't line up if I'm living in the truth. And also this physical allergy thing that when I got to AA actually like saved my life to learn that there was something different about the way I process alcohol than other people. I have a little brother. He's 5 years younger than me. We grew up in the same ghetto, same drug dealer parents, same, you know, we both had to get by on food stamps and hand-me-downs. He is a normal drinker. And I could not figure out what is so terrible with me. Why am I different? And when I got to AA and read in the beautiful doctor's opinion about that physical allergy, wow, that really lifted some weight off of my shoulders to have that explained to me. There's actually one line in the doctor's opinion I'm going to just tell you I still think is ridiculous and I don't understand. How it says that we drink for the effect alcohol produces. Like, obviously, like, could someone please explain to me what do other people drink for if not the effect? I just don't get it. And that alone, the fact that I can't process why we need that in the book to separate us, is why I'm an alcoholic, probably. It's just a magical elixir that does stuff different for me. And it's also not reliable, and it changes. And it's not just the alcohol. The end of my drinking took me to some really dark places. It is hard to be a blackout drinker and sustain a night. So I started to layer in some other fun goodies. I'm a nurse by trade, so I had access to some really fun goodies. And that's not a sustainable lifestyle either. And my consequences got real dark. I had my RN license removed from me. I was lucky I didn't go to jail for endangering people's lives. I had a child. His father, obviously our relationship was, we couldn't have a relationship the way that I was. I always thought it was him. We did shared custody, and I hid a lot of my terrible parenting. And it would look like this. My son, I got sober when my son was 8 or 9. So I couldn't hold my own job. I couldn't pay my own rent. I couldn't do anything for myself. I was at the point of drinking where the obsession to drink comes above all. The love for your children, the ability to participate in anything, life, relationships, anything. My son was in kindergarten, and I didn't have a driver's license or car, and I couldn't get up out of bed in the morning to walk him to school. So I would do the best I could to get my butt up out of bed and just send him on his way, and tell him to just look for the crossing guard. The crossing guard will help you cross the street. And I would let this 5-year-old walk a mile to school through a bad neighborhood. That's heartbreaking, you guys. I was driving in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is pretty nice. And I saw a little kid. He was like 10, and he's riding a bike, got his helmet on. And I was like, he's too young. And then I had that memory of like my parenting and what I let my child go out there and do, and how that was my best I could do. Luckily, not luckily, hopefully, sometimes I would be able to get up to catch him on the back end of school, walk myself over to school and grab him when school was done. And on the way home, we'd always stop at the bar. And there was never money for him to have dinner. I would just rely on the kindness of strangers to buy my kid dinner while I sat at the bar and do what I needed to do. These don't make you feel good, these kind of behaviors. And you know what I know makes me feel good, drinking. So, you know, I got into some really dark places around my drinking, and some really terrible, risky behavior for around parenting. And I share that because I couldn't talk about the kind of parent I was in AA for a long time. I couldn't come to AA and not like snot bubble cry over the thinking about what I did to my son. It took years. And while I don't know, not regret the past is a tricky saying, you know. My son and I have a wonderful relationship today, and he's a healthy, young, 24-year-old dude out there. And like, I continuously say to him, I'm so sorry about your experience as a child. And he this year, I'm like all over the place. He this year for Mother's Day wrote me out a card and was like, stop being so hard on yourself. I learned a lot of lessons of independence. And I learned everything I am today that is of value I learned from you. And I couldn't believe that I got that back. It doesn't take away my regret. But thank God for sobriety, because I have gone to H&I commitments and shared my stories about what kind of mom I was and what kind of mom I am. And my ability to share my past now reflects a possibility for women in, you know, there's a H&I out in California is correct, is what is it? Corrections? I think you guys call it corrections. There's a facility out here where women, instead of going to jail, can go to rehab with their children. And I've done H&I out there and shared my experience about how I couldn't stay sober during my pregnancy and my little snippets, and just watch moms cry their freaking eyes out and not believe that there is hope and a way through and a sustainable future and a good life in sobriety. And how lucky that I get to be an example of that. But it only makes sense in sobriety. If I leave tomorrow, it's right back to crap, baby. So anyway, that's the picture of me drinking, right? The vision for you, right? I always knew somewhere in my heart that this was not God's plan for me. And I'm not religious. Even though I went to 14 years of Catholic school, I consider myself to be like a spiritual creature. I could never figure out how the God that they were teaching me in school could connect for me. It just never felt authentic. But I did always have some kind of hope or belief or faith that my life as an active alcoholic is not what I'm meant to be. Not what I'm meant to be. So, you know, just to fast forward a little bit, I'm circling the drain for years in my hometown of Philadelphia. My little hippie drug dealer parents worked hard, put themselves through school, got a second careers, got on their feet, made something of themselves, and moved to California, and offered me the opportunity to move across country and live with them and get on my feet. And I think it was a lifeline that they thought would be sobriety. And I thought that my problem was just drugs at that point. So I moved to California in 2005. And everything that I told myself I needed to get on track, get my life together, showed up for me. I got a job. I could hold a job. I got a cell phone. I got a bank account. My kid was going to school. I had a driver's license. I had a boyfriend. All of these little checklist items that I told myself, if only, then it would be okay, showed up. And you know what happened? I was the most miserable I've ever been in my whole life, ever. I will call this phase of my sobriety, which is pre-sobriety, as my spiritual bottom. I never hit one of these before. I had never felt so broken as an individual. And this is when I started to drink every morning. As soon as my eyes popped open, I was grabbing for a bottle of whiskey. Our book calls, it identifies this feeling of a hopeless alcoholic and the spiritual malady as with the 4 horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. There's some big words that carry so much power behind them. And if you have ever experienced a spiritual bottom sufficient to kick your ass into AA, then those little words don't even do it justice to what I'm talking about, to the darkness, the loneliness, the despair, the misery. I would just cry and scream all day, basically. And alcohol stopped working for me. It was unpredictable. I never knew how my day was going to turn out if I were to have a drink. And I did not understand anything about physical allergy or obsession of the mind. As a matter of fact, I had like a little notepad, and I'd wake up in the morning and I would write a contract to myself. I, Megan, whatever my name was at that time, will only have 3 drinks of alcohol today. 3 drinks? That's so stupid when you know about the physical allergy that happens after you have 1 drink. But I had no information on that, and I did the best I could to white knuckle it and control my drinking. And it just was sheer misery. I drank like that for 3 years. You know, I think I'm a smart person. I went to AA in nursing school and I knew about it, but it just never occurred to me to go to AA. I was dating a guy who was getting sober. He had been sober for 30 days. And I was clinging to him like, oh my gosh, if you get sober, then I'll get sober and I'll feel better. And this is the solution. And I can only imagine what that felt like for him, like real fun, right? Have some crazy lady clinging to you to fix her life when you're trying to get sober. And one day he just said, why don't you go to AA? In my memory, he said it. I'm pretty sure he yelled it, but whatever, I heard it. And I was ready. I had this experience of desperation and a willingness. And it was like magic time, baby. You know, someone put the action there right at the perfect window that I was ready to grab it. And I went to my first meeting on February 29th in 2008. This was the first time I had ever done anything because I wanted to get sober. I'd gone to AA. Wait, let me back it up. I had been to AA before because Board of Nursing wanted me to go, because DUI wanted me to go, because family wanted me to go. It had never occurred to me that I could go if I wanted sobriety. And that was a magic thing too. Like my motive for showing up to that first meeting because of my broken desperation. And I want to let you know, I wasn't going for sobriety. I was going for 1 minute of peace, maybe 10 minutes of relief, maybe an hour of not drinking against my will. I was not looking for a lifetime of sobriety. And I'm so grateful that I didn't know that was coming, because I might have not gone. So that meeting is so etched in my memory. It's so powerful and impactful to me, what happened to me in that meeting. And that's not everybody's experience, and I know it. But in our literature, we read that line and how it works about how we stood at the turning point and we asked for protection and care with complete abandon. What beautiful poetry. What beautiful poetry. If you've come here tonight and you've gotten any sobriety, you probably experienced that. I didn't know I was doing that. I sat in that meeting and I was angry and uncomfortable. And I kind of was like, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do all of it. And I used my nursing school training. In nursing school, I was afraid of doing IVs and doing Foley catheters. They were my two skills that I was terrified of doing. And I remember my instructor took my hand and was like, let's just get them over with first. And when I came to AA to get sober, I was terrified of getting a sponsor and working the steps. So I nursing schooled it. I got a sponsor within the first week. And that sponsor, she actually had me wait 30 days to work the steps, and I didn't care. I was just there for it. Tell me what to do. I'm here for it. I have no idea. Just tell me. And for someone who is so selfish and bossy, I cannot believe that I had 30 days of willingness to follow suggestions from another person. But that's what happens in AA all the time. Miracles all the time. And if you think that sounds corny, what is a miracle? Something you believe impossible happens. That's what's happening here, folks. Something we believe impossible is happening. So what happened to me is that next morning after I woke up, I told you what kind of drinker I am. A gross drinker who doesn't know how to take a breath without whiskey going down there. The next morning, I didn't drink. It was so freaking uncomfortable. I had no idea what to do with myself. I did not feel good. I was very restless, very irritable, very discontented, but I just didn't drink. And I heard some things go on at that meeting last night, and I did them. I got a phone list at the meeting, and they told me call some of the women on the phone list. And I was like, this is so bizarro. So I called a lady, she didn't answer, and I hung up the phone. I didn't even leave a message, but I did it. And they say, go to as many meetings as possible. Some people do, a meeting every day for 90 days. And I was like, okay, I'll just go to one the next day. And I set up a meeting to go to, and I made it 24 hours, 24 freaking hours without drinking or anything else. Can you believe that? Can you believe it? Yeah, Harvey, right? That was some of the most harder time in my whole sobriety, actually. So anyway, I love AA literature. I love to read. I came across something later on that really put that whole, like, what the heck happened there? Where did that gift of grace come from? Where my life began to have a pause from the insanity and a break so something could get in and push me on another path. And I want to give you a little spoiler alert. The path that it pushed me on is what I think I'm supposed to be doing in the world. Like, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be in sobriety. There's a guy in early AA, his name is Dr. Tebow, not an alcoholic, who was watching what was going on with the early founders as they were developing this thing that turned into AA. He had a patient who he gave psychiatric treatment to that was an alcoholic, and watched this person suffer from powerlessness and hopelessness and unmanageability of alcoholism. This turns into our step one. He watched that person make 100% surrender to this concept that I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable. 100%. Amen. Mark it down. It is true. I know it. So we got step one. They did a surrender. And then they went to, I believe in the story, they went to like one of the, meetings at a house to talk to other alcoholics before the book was officially out. And what that is an action. Followed it up with an action. Surrender plus action. And then they found the gift of grace, which provided some sobriety. What an amazing formula. Surrender, boom, action, boom, grace. How cool is that? And that has happened to me every day of my sobriety. if I can make that surrender and understand what it means to be an alcoholic and what it means for me. And understand that if I want to be in that powerlessness and trying to manage it, what my life looks like. And then if I follow it up with an action, you know, at this stage in the day, my action isn't always a meeting. It's not, I don't go to a meeting every day anymore like I did in the early days. It's always prayer and meditation. It's always some kind of service of thinking of others. It's always practicing whatever step was applicable. I mean, these things are so much easier to throw in the way of action. And I have been able to stay sober. I have not suffered from terrible cravings from drinking. Again, let me just say, I know this is not everyone's experience. But, you know, early on in sobriety, I started to feel super fired up, kind of like Stephen was saying that I am tonight. I don't know how he knew it, but I was feeling that, you know, feeling good. My life was turning around. I was having the same things happen and different results. Like one night I got a flat tire, and normally I would just like throw myself at the bar and cry over this. Oh my God. And like, I just called my dad to come help me. Like, what? You don't have to spin out and destroy your life over little weird things in life not going your way. And I was having spiritual awakening, signs and symptoms of spiritual awakening. It's amazing. And I remember one of the dudes in the meeting I was going to was like, don't worry, that blows up. Don't worry, your pink cloud will burst. And I was so bummed out about that. And I just want to share with you that that has not been my experience. When we read the promises, maybe it's my nurse brain, but I look at all that stuff and I think they are signs and symptoms of having a spiritual awakening. And it's not long-term sobriety or any sobriety about heading towards that path of spiritual growth. And if I stay on that path, why would I not maintain the effects of spirituality? Like, why would it ever go away? Now, granted, life is lifey, right? Life gets super lifey. And that's not, you know, AA's fault. That's not sobriety brings you bad luck. But it certainly is much easier to have spiritual tools and practice them within a regular life, a regular course of life events. Stephen, how much more time do I have? 10 hours? Are we doing a marathon?
You've got, 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. So anyway, my little, pious AA early years were super fun. I learned to do a lot of service. I finished the steps. I got to sponsor people. I am someone who loves meetings. I've always had a home group. Like, I actually love AA. I love being in AA. I love everything about it. It's provided me so much fun, along with the solution to alcoholism and the serenity and peace that comes that I had never had in my life up until this point. It provided me spirituality. I, around 1 year, 2 years sober, I did like a New Year's resolution where like I was going to try and figure out what the hell is meditation. And I tried all this wacky stuff. And like, I was going to a non-denominational church and like dropping my kid off at school and parking in cemeteries and like, setting timers and listening to CDs and seeking. And I want to tell you, out of that 1 year, I don't think I found anything that I still do in my practice today, but by the beautiful process of seeking for something that feels genuine to me, I found a relationship with a higher power. And I thought I'd never send my kid to Catholic school. And lo and behold, he went to a private Catholic school and he came home with homework one night about what's our spiritual practices. And we had answers. Can you believe that? Like, I had answers to share with that kid. And when he comes out today, he doesn't get up he's 24. He sleeps way past my Papa wake times. But if we catch each other in the morning, we share our spiritual practices together. We'll ask him, do you want to sit and do prayer and meditation with us? And he will all the time. And this ability to be comfortable with my own spirituality and share it and talk about it with others has certainly reinforced for me what it is. I met a dude in AA and we were dating and we got to like 6 months sober. And we started, or 6 months, you know, together, solid relationship. And we started to share our spiritual practices with each other. And that just catapulted, like everything that I thought about my spirituality just got catapulted into a new level when I shared it with another person. And I know that's not everybody's experience to be able to do that, but I have done some really super awkward, uncomfortable things with my friends on trips, all, you know, family vacations. Like we just went to Hawaii with my mother-in-law and we did prayer meditation with her, which is super uncomfortable to sit there with somebody that like isn't in your little AA bubble. And by the end of it, crying from the connection. So I've learned to never be afraid to try stuff out in AA about that. And, you know, a lot of my early sobriety was asking, what do I want to do in AA? I got my bachelor's, I got my career back, I bought a house, I got married, I traveled. Anything that I had set as a goal has been achieved. Right on, good for me, right? But my sobriety has lately pivoted into, I realized the question is now, what does AA want me to do for it? During COVID, healthcare professional, some of the most trying times of my career to be a healthcare professional during a pandemic. Everyone was terrified. We have no resources. We have no vaccine. Our patients don't want us. They're not safe. We're not safe. And how do we walk through that? And thank you again to AA for the spiritual principles. Like I'm a manager. Like I had to keep these people moving through being healthcare professionals in a pandemic. And I used AA Jedi mind tricks on them and it helped me. It got super intense. You know, I looked for another job. I wanted to quit, but there's nowhere to go. It's like this everywhere. And what I learned is that when people are afraid, they're assholes. And when I'm afraid, I'm the same way. And I was getting pulled into this me versus you. And I'd have to sit longer in the morning and look for God and ask, who does God want me to be? And who do I want to be? And go out there and find a little extra patience, love, tolerance, and kindness to give people a moment. And we stayed united through that. And now in AA, I love the service I do. I do general service. I am the alternate DCMC for District 08, which is Contra Costa County. So I'm the alternate chair of our general service meetings for our county. And how much fun am I having? This time last year, I was the secretary for my home group, and I got to be the secretary when we decided we were going to go back in person and try hybrid. And now my district's trying to do hybrid, and our area, which is the whole friggin' northern coast of California, wants to do hybrid. And I get to be on all of these ad hocs. I've done it at my home group, district, and now area. I'm on the ad hoc to figure out how do we do this. And it doesn't sound like that big a deal, but you know what is occurring to me? This is the AA that's going to be here when the next newcomer comes. And I think about the meeting that I showed up to, the literature they had, the format, and that people loved AA and their sobriety enough, and me, without knowing me, to take care to make these decisions and think about group unity and the freedom of a newcomer to show up and have this healing and environment. And I get to be part of that conversation now. And I just can't believe it. I actually found that this, can you believe this? This flyer fell out of my bookshelf. Serving all alcoholics. And it's written in 2017. And I'm almost like, are we doing this or what, you guys? Like, this is about people deaf, hearing impaired, elderly, homebound. And like all of these problems are resolved by technology now. And we're slow to embrace it, you know? And just the care that we need to talk about when we move forward. Like, you don't get to decide how other people show up to AA. And that's what we always want to do. We want to look at the other person and decide what they should be doing instead of thinking, how can I be of service to the needs that are being known? So anyway, that's my dorking out on my service right now. I am just so blown away that I get to be part of the conversation about how to keep groups united as we move forward. And I like that question a lot. What does AA want me to do? So with that, I'm going to shut up. And thank you for letting me share with you tonight. It was so nice to be here with you.